I mean, if you're a Bears fan, you're thinking forward progress. Come on.
10, 219, 219.
Forward Progress, a Chicago Bears podcast with Dan Bernstein and Matt Abeticola on 312 Sports.
We give you Forward Progress here on 312 Sports, a Chicago Bears podcast, and the Chicago Bears are getting set for their divisional round playoff game in the NFC against the visiting Los Angeles Rams on Sunday. And here to talk about that and more is our friend Matt Miller. He is at NFL Draft Scout on socials. He is your NFL ESPN expert for all things draft and beyond. What's happening, Matt? How are you?
I'm doing well. Here we go again, another week talking about an elite, historic Chicago Bears football game. And I'm excited for the weekend. I'm very excited. I see you guys have your cold gear on. It's gonna be
very
chilly.
cold. Yeah, they're talking about wind chills in the negative for game time.
Which, side note, stop building domes. This is how football is supposed to be played. And I understand the TV element. I understand the high octane offense element of it. But give me January football. I want guys in scuba suits because it's so cold. I want linemen with their arms all Vaselined up to close the pores so that they're not feeling the cold. This is what football is supposed to be. That's right. Sterile, cool. It's like I've been to games in the Falcon Stadium and I hate it. It's beautiful, but it's too pretty. You know, it'd be like living in a museum.
Okay, let me just ask you this: do you want the same to be true for the NBA?
Oh, playing indoors? I think the NBA should be played indoors. Yes.
Why?
Basketball? Because
why?
I don't know, because it always has been, I guess. I don't know. You're making me think too hard this week.
I think it's arbitrary.
Been played inside. Here's my thing. As someone who was a bad high school basketball player, I need that wall behind the goal as a frame of reference for where the backboard and the rim are.
Yes.
That's probably the biggest thing for me.
Buddy, it's funny when my kids, they're travel basketball now, youth kids, and they're playing in these big open stadiums where there's these field houses where there's like 5 or 6 courts together, and there's no depth perception because there's no wall. Like the gym's in the middle of this field house. I'm always like, oh my God, that'd be impossible for me to shoot. I'd be throwing up bricks against the backboard every time.
I talked to Steve Kerr about that.
What did he say?
I talked to Steve Kerr when we were at shoot around in the old Cap Center in Washington. And with the old dank, it smelled like an ice rink in there. And we were at shoot around and Kerr walked in. He goes, God, I love this place. And I said, nobody loves this place, Steve. This place is gross. It's smelly. It's awful. It's wet. And he's like, yeah, but look how dark it is back there. He goes, even when the game starts, look how much that basket stands out against the dark, poorly lit background. He said, I love shooting here because all you can see is the rim. And I was like, all right.
Yeah, and you're going to find a disagreement from both of us. We want domes everywhere, every city. That's the way it should be played.
There's too much at stake. There's too much at stake, and I'm not just talking about legalized gambling. There's livelihoods at stake, and the fact that somebody could slip on a piece of mud, or that horrible field in Glendale. It was happening again. Do you remember the Super Bowl? Was it the Chiefs and Chiefs Eagles?
Yeah.
Everyone was slipping the whole time, and a game is decided because of that?
Well, I mean, everyone should be playing on grass, number one. So that would solve part of that problem. And I know that was grass. But
that was grass.
It had been sitting outside for like 6 months. And anyway, go Bears.
Okay.
Anyway. So the Bears-Packers game on Saturday night, you watched that game. What did you walk away with after that game? Another, thrilling Caleb Williams fourth quarter come from behind victory.
I told the people I was with at halftime, this game is not over because this is what the Bears do. This is what the Bears do. And you guys know I'm on here every week talking about this. I am such a believer in Caleb Williams and his poise and his confidence, and that he has the arm talent to bring you back. And there are guys, Brock Purdy, my guy, probably not the arm talent to bring you back, but Caleb can make plays that no one else can. And I mean, he's up there in terms of crazy throws. I mean, it's with Mahomes, it's with Josh Allen, it's with early Aaron Rodgers. And it's special. And I think we saw that consistently in the second half. I mean, great job by the Bears to adjust, number one. Defensively, they were playing super aggressive in the first half. I didn't think that really worked for them. I loved the adjustments in the second half. And I think that we're getting to the point where other teams feel that. And they're like, oh, great, here he comes. You get a couple points on the board, it's 21-3, and then it's 21-9. And you're looking across the field like, okay, here comes 18, because he believes he's going to lead them back. And he has the talent and the tools to create plays and extend plays. And I mean, it's so fun to watch. And to see the rest of the team take that attitude, for Luther Burden to be like grabbing bros by the chin strap and saying like, nope, we're playing like with an attitude that has been missing probably since Brian Urlacher and Charles Tillman were there, right? So I think that's the fun part for you guys and for the fans of the team is you can feel that confidence being built with this team.
So here's what we did on Dan Bernstein Unfiltered earlier today. And I just asked this question, and it's very simple. If you could swap out Caleb Williams for any other team's quarterback, anyone, how many would be on that list right now? And this is not about money. It's not about.
That was going to be my first question.
It has nothing to do with salary cap. It has nothing to do with playing one game. It just has to do with I said there's a genie in a lamp, and the only power that genie has is to take someone else's quarterback and poof, as is, they're switched out right away. How many how many in the league right now would you say you take Caleb, I'll take that guy?
If I had to say, okay, you get Caleb, I get that guy, Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is the best. You would trade Caleb for him. Josh Allen, I think you would trade Caleb for him just because he's proven. That might be it.
Wow. Dude,
I love Joe Burrow.
That's great.
I
he's
love Joe Burrow, but he's hurt all the time.
He's hurt all the time. He's 30 years old. He's hurt all the time.
And I love Lamar Jackson, but he's hurt all the time. And I love Justin Herbert, but he's hurt all the time. Like he's banged up. Now he's shell shocked right now.
The one where I paused after I said, yeah, Allen probably yes. Mahomes at 30. Probably. Yeah.
Well, actually, Dan, as we went through it, and Dan had one, I had one. He had Josh Allen, I had Patrick Mahomes. Then the only two guys.
But the other one where I could really see a reasonable hesitation is Drake May. Maybe. Right? But what is the?
And I still think Caleb does things with the ball that Drake can't do.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And it almost is like the Mahomes Allen conversation. If you take away Super Bowls, who's the better quarterback, right? Like if you just regular season play, talent versus talent, and like Caleb and Drake might be the next iteration of that. I mean, they're both really, really good. They're both really, really special. There's probably a little bit of bias here because I did say when Caleb was coming out of USC, this is a generational talent at quarterback. There is not a conversation for him versus Jaden Daniels. To me, there was not a conversation for him against Drake May or Bo Nix or who was the other first-round quarterback that year? Why am I drawing a blank? Anyway,
Jaden Daniels.
He said
Jaden Daniels.
Yeah. There's one more. There's five.
Penix,
exactly.
Yeah.
So to me, it was Caleb, and then a drop down, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, then a sizable drop down, Bo Nix, then Michael Penix. So, I've been saying this since he was at Oklahoma. I grew up a Texas fan. I can remember my brother's bachelor party sitting at Hackett's Hot Wings in Joplin, Missouri, watching that game where Caleb Williams came in right before half. And Texas fans are chanting, "We want Caleb." Spencer Rattler gets benched. Here comes this true freshman, and he rips off like a 60-yard run. You're like, oh, well, you got what you asked for, and he the moment has never felt too big, and I think we saw that again on Saturday night.
What does Matthew Stafford least like doing? When you begin to game plan against him, how do you make him uncomfortable, whether it is scheme or deciding what you're going to double, what you're going to take away? How do you make him uncomfortable?
Well, I think you go back. I mean, there aren't many games this year where he was made uncomfortable. I think Houston like week 1 did a pretty good job, but that was, 3 months ago. Things have changed.
And a great defense.
Right? And so I was like, to make him uncomfortable, you have to win with your front four, basically. You have to say, we're going to go home with 4. Chicago can't do that, right? And so the problem is when you have to bring extra pressure, he's so decisive and he's so good at getting to the right spot. And his guys, that Puka is electric underneath, and he's such a good safety blanket that, this team's going to score 24 points. Like they're going to score 24. I can't remember the last time they didn't score, 25, 26 points a game. It feels like, I think Seattle did a pretty good job against them in the first game, not the crazy one that went to overtime. I think Seattle played them pretty well, but again, you're talking about a great defense that is able to match up on the outsides and get home with their rushers. And shoot, I think Darnold threw a couple picks in that game, like a lot of picks in that game. Otherwise, maybe Seattle has a chance. But that's probably your blueprint is those teams that have been able to cover on the outside and kind of get home against Stafford. At least you're probably not going to get a lot of sacks, but you can hit him. And he is probably the toughest dude in the NFL, but he's always kind of banged up, and he's got the finger thing right now. So I think the playbook is to try to frustrate him with some hits. And that there's going to be a lot of in crossers. There's going to be a lot of option routes underneath. The linebackers and safeties got to be ready. There's so much pressure on them in the passing game.
We talked about this the last couple of days. Ben Johnson made a comment on Monday looking back at the win over Green Bay, and he talked about Caleb Williams being getting Caleb Williams into a rhythm, and how he doesn't want to deviate too much from the game plan, but he also knows that he needs Caleb to start throwing the ball to get warmed up, so it's not just second half stuff. But he can't go away from the run game because it's been the best unit and it's been one of the most effective run games in the league. How does he balance that as a play caller and a head coach to find a way? And Caleb's even talked about this in the regular season, Matt, about being warmed up, and he's not quite warmed up and his legs aren't underneath him quite right away. Yeah. How does what's a good approach for Ben Johnson to get Caleb warmed up into the game early while still not going away from that run game, which is really effective against any opponent?
Yeah, but but the run game wasn't great last week, and I know some of that was because you're down 21-3, so you got to start chucking the ball around. So that probably affects things a little bit. But if I remember right, the yards per attempt were not good last week. So
it was not good, and especially for Kyle, it wasn't as good as it was for Swift. But running between the tackles didn't seem to be very effective for the Bears. But when they ran outside, they seemed to get more yards with Swift.
Yeah. So how do you get Caleb involved? I mean, I think that's what the script is so important early. I would probably try to get him in a little bit more like RPO situations where it is okay. We've still got the run threat here. We've got that element. But when you have guys who can make plays after the catch, like Luther Burden, like Colston Loveland, like Moore, I would probably try to set some things up that way to where he is more involved. So it's not just all right, under center, hand the ball off, watch Swift or Kyle go. Getting him in the flow of the game early, I do think is important, and I think you see that with a lot of great quarterbacks too. I think in Kansas City you can go back to early Mahomes and see that. How many times in Mahomes' first year as a starter did you see them chuck a deep ball to Tyreek Hill in the first drive? Because they wanted to open things up. They wanted to get him involved in the game. They wanted to have a play he was excited about, and they wanted to keep defenses on their toes. So I don't know that it's the same methodology here of like, hey, let's just fire one off deep to someone. The Bears are built a little bit differently than that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we, maybe see some RPO just to try to get his legs involved as well.
When I consider the fact that the special teams on the Rams may be the only aspect where they're just not good. They're ranked poorly there. They're on their second special teams coach already. And yet, it's not really an aspect where you can look at it and say, here's where we're going to take advantage because we're better than they are at certain things. Or am I wrong? Is there a way to strategize special teams outside of exotics?
I don't know that you strategize it. More so, I think you try to be prepared to capitalize on mistakes. Whether it's a bad punt or a bad kickoff or a missed field goal, block opportunities. I'm sure they're going over a lot of that this week. So you could probably find some things on tape that you feel like you could take advantage of from a strategy standpoint. But I think the key is just being ready when they do mess up to jump on that. And what is our look going to be coming off of that? If we see them, lined up wrong for an extra point, we feel like we can go get it, or a field goal. You feel like you have some opportunities that way.
Or if they give up a big return and say, look, all of a sudden we just ran a kickoff back to their 38, and now we've got a seam shot here on first down.
Right, yeah. And, I think I'm a big believer in momentum, and I know a lot of the analytics folks are not. But I think some of that, like you said, Dan, it's like if you do get that big return, all right, let's go take a shot. This is not the time to try to ground out a 10-play drive. Like, no, let's foot on the gas. Let's go get them. And I think that is one area where Ben Johnson and I would get along very, very well, because he's also very aggressive in that way. We saw that last week. He's not afraid to do that. And, when he says foot on the neck, he means it, instead of, foot on the neck, and here's a 15-play drive where we ultimately kick a field goal. It's much more aggressive, and he's got a quarterback that can execute that way. So, but to beat the Rams, like we were talking about, you have to score. You have to score a lot of points to beat this team. Not to go full Tony Romo with how cliche that is, but that's the truth. They're going to score. And I wish I had looked this up. I feel like they probably average like 30 points a game. So you have to score. And Chicago has shown against San Francisco, against Green Bay in recent weeks, that they can play in a shootout with some of the best teams in the NFL.
Yeah, and Matt, I did look that up, and if the Bears are going to win, they're going to have to score over 30 points. The Rams, in their 5 losses, averaged 28 points.
Yeah.
So they're going to have to score 30. Like, the offense is going to have to show up, and you can't just be a fourth quarter thing. Not this weekend. They're going to have to be there from the first quarter on and turning long extended drives into touchdowns and not just field goals if they're going to win this game. Talking about winning a game, what do the 49ers have to do to go into Seattle and beat Seattle and then get to Soldier Field for the championship game?
Yeah, they got to play a hell of a lot differently than they did in Week 17. I mean, Purdy's got to, he goes through these games where it's like the turnovers are head scratching, so it's like, who are you, basically? Are you going to be the guy that, is like against Chicago, where you're swagged out and you're playing super clean and you're efficient? Or are you going to be like the guy we saw Week 17 against Seattle, where he almost looks timid at times, and I think he maybe threw for like 150 yards that game, but he had a pick. He got sacked a couple times, so he just has to play more consistently, which he was doing. He ended the year red hot, and I know it was Titans, Colts, Bears. He looked elite in that stretch. But then you go back to the game against Carolina, that kind of weird game against Carolina, where he threw 3 picks. So I think he has to just be more careful with the ball. And not all that's on him, right? There have certainly been interceptions over the last 6 weeks that aren't on him. But I think you see some of the disconnect of the time that he missed and maybe not being on the same page with guys, even though he's been back for a month at this point. So that's probably the biggest key is Brock can't turn the ball over. Now that Kittle's out, I thought that was going to be backbreaking for them once Kittle went out last week.
So did I.
And Purdy threw 2 picks, and Kittle was out. Didn't really matter because the defense played really, really well, and they're doing that without Fred Warner. I think it helps that Jalen Hurts cannot throw the football very effectively, so it's going to be different this week because Darnold and Purdy are a lot alike in that they're both going to have games at times where you're like, what the hell are you? You're throwing 3 or 4 picks this game, and we have no idea what you're seeing out there. So I think this weekend it's 2 really good defenses. The Niners have a great run game. Obviously, you have a player in McCaffrey that could probably be the MVP of the league if at a minimum the offensive player of the year. Seattle's got a defense that's just, the scheme is so beautiful. It's not even about individual playmakers. It's about how great the scheme is. So it should be a fun matchup. I mean, just from a football standpoint, Shanahan against McDonald, like that's a hell of a matchup just to see how they're going to go after each other. And it's the 3rd time, just like Bears-Packers. You've seen each other for the 3rd time this year. Right. You know each other. You know everything there is to know about that team at this point.
Yeah, the difference is you actually have the coaches going up against each other's specialties, where it isn't. People are saying Sean McVay against Ben Johnson. Like, no. It's Sean McVay against Dennis Allen, and it's Chris Shula against Ben Johnson. And even though that you have both of these guys with their own offenses, they're not matching wits against each other in real time.
Right. And this one is, it'll be different. And they played week 1 49ers barely won. They played Week 18. Seahawks won. Both times low-scoring games. Both times, I think Week 1 was like 17-13. Week 18 was 13-3. So this has not been the prolific shootout against the Bears or the game against the Colts where they scored almost 50 points. This is not going to be that. This will probably be the most boring game of the weekend for people that want to see a lot of points, but it should be a really fun chess match between two coaches who are doing it as well as anyone right now. And man, Seattle controls the line of scrimmage so well. So that's going to be a kind of a treat to watch Trent Williams and that offensive line against these guys, because goodness, they are aggressive, and they really defensively, they don't make a lot of mistakes. So they're going to be fun to watch.
How surprised were you to hear that Mike Tomlin stepped down?
Not that surprised. I think, and I don't know, I'm not trying to like break any news here, but I think you have to wonder when you see a front office that has missed at quarterback so many times post Ben Roethlisberger. Kenny Pickett overdrafted, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson situation, Aaron Rodgers, who's 42 years old. There's not been a long-term plan at quarterback, and it does feel like for too long they've tried to keep the core together when what they probably needed to do was reset. And so for Tomlin, I think this is his opportunity to take a year, figure out what he wants, and then go somewhere where he can get that clean reset, because the Steelers are stuck in quarterback purgatory. You're going to win 9 games every year. You're going to sneak into the playoffs and lose in the wild card round, but you're not drafting a quarterback because of that. And you're good enough that you got to pay to keep the veterans, which means you really can't pay should a quarterback become available. So you're going to trade for Kyler Murray. You're going to trade for Mac Jones. Like what? They're stuck in that spot where they need a reset year. And I do think this will be good for all involved, that they're going to get that.
Do you think the Ben Johnson embrace of the Packers rivalry on multiple data points here? There was what he said when he took the job about beating Matt LaFleur, and then he's followed this up with the perfunctory handshakes. I don't even think the most recent one counts. That was more of a taunt. That it really was more of a taunt than a handshake. And then the whole fuck the Packers, and then coming back to it and saying, I stand by it. I'm good with ownership. I don't like this team, or I don't like that team, whatever he said. Like, do you think this is real? Is it kind of real, or is it a wrestling bit? Whatever it is, I know it's fun, and there's all sorts of collateral stuff that's going on around it, but I guess it's cool, right?
I think it's cool, but I'm also, I'm a little bit old school. I'm 42 years old. I remember when football was like this, where the Niners and Cowboys hated each other, and the Chiefs and the Raiders hated each other, and there wasn't this, hey, let's trade jerseys after the game thing. It was like, we're rivals, and we don't like each other. And so I loved when Ben Johnson takes a shot at Matt LaFleur in his introductory press conference, and people were asking Matt LaFleur about it, and he's like, I have no idea. I don't think I've ever even talked to the guy before. It's like, no, it does feel a little like college, but when you're named the head coach of the Chicago Bears, you got to put a target on the top, and that's what he did. And you're not going to put one on Dan Campbell because he's a psychopath and would kill you, but also because you just worked for him, right? But the Packers have been the kings of the North for forever. Aaron Rodgers about owning Chicago. You put a target on the top, and I like that. I think, to come in and say, that's the team we have to beat. We don't like them. They are where we want to be. And guess what? That's where they are now. I mean, year one, and you're where you said you were going to be. So I love people that will talk shit and back it up. Ben Johnson has backed it up every step of the way. And I think you also got to know your crowd. That maybe that's not going to fly in every city, but in Chicago it does. And I mean, hats off to him for understanding how to tap into that.
Matt, before we let you go, I want to talk about next Monday night's game, Indiana and Miami, because we won't talk until after that game. First of all, what was your impression of the Indiana-Oregon game? Oregon, a top 10 defense, looked like they'd never played defense before, and the way Indiana's just rolling. So talk about that, and then what do you think about Indiana-Miami? What's happening Monday night?
My thoughts with the Indiana-Oregon game, were, holy shit. Like, it was over so fast. First play of the game, D'Angelo Pons is taking a pick six. Indiana is so well coached. They don't have a weakness. They don't. And I understand Miami's defensive line is amazing, and they suffocate you. Miami's offensive line is really good. Indiana almost plays like a professional football team against a college team because those guys are so experienced and they're so well coached. They just do not make mistakes.
Yeah, they're as old as some NFL teams.
I mean, yeah, and I don't know if you guys remember this. When the playoffs first started, I said something about that. Of the difference for Indiana is that these guys are 23 and 24 years old playing against 18 and 19-year-olds in some cases. Now, Carson Beck, the quarterback for Miami, is also a fifth or sixth year guy, right? He's an older player as well. But that experience matters. College coaches will tell you constantly there is no substitute for experience. It's why Quinn Ewers starts over Arch Manning, because the experience factor and how valuable that is, especially in big games like this. So I lean toward Indiana. I hope it's a little bit of a closer game than Indiana's other playoff games have been thus far. But man, what a cool story. And I love that, kind of the balance is being shaken up. We don't have an SEC team in here. No one thought the ACC was going to make a run this year. But Miami and Indiana, they're built like NFL teams. They really are. They're great defensive lines. They're opportunistic in the secondary. They run the ball. You got quarterbacks who can make plays. And when Beck doesn't turn the ball over, and I thought he looked really bad last week, but they still got the win. When he's playing clean, it's very, very efficient professional football.
I think that Curt Cignetti's job this year may be one of the great coaching jobs I've ever seen in sports. Like at all. What are we talking about here? Like Herb Brooks and the 1980 Olympic hockey team. Some
Belichick,
of these
that first year, the first Patriots Super Bowl.
It's
Bledsoe gets hurt.
Yes.
Brady comes in.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, it's like that.
Or Steve Fisher with Michigan. Like there are some things that are going on here where it's not supposed to work like this. They're not supposed to lose really good players and have some other 3-star no-name step up and be spectacular. They don't make mistakes.
They don't.
They don't beat themselves. They execute. And it's just a coach's dream to watch some of this. And I don't know, it's like he's got them on autopilot, or they're almost like you go to, back in the day when you would go to the circus and you would see like the guy would come out there with these trained dogs, and I would make me sad because all I would think is, boy, he must just torture these dogs to get them to do all this stuff. It was serious. I would think that, like, what horrible, hellish life do these animals live to be able to never make mistakes in these incredibly complicated tricks? Is Cignetti doing that to these players? Does he go back to some hellish laboratory? Like, I don't know how you can take college kids, even 24-year-old college kids, and make them do all this stuff this well.
Lots of treats. That's all.
I was going to say, in that analogy, I think the dogs were just getting a shitload of treats, and maybe that's what's happening in Indiana football.
Maybe.
The treats is called NIL now,
right.
But it's like Mark Cuban's bank account. I don't know. It's fascinating though, and I love that he doesn't have a general manager. He's his own director of recruiting and evaluating talent, and it's fascinating. I mean, it's the last 2 years what he's done is remarkable. And I do love that the power balance in college football has been shifted so much by what he's doing, and I don't think it's replicatable. I don't think anyone else could do this.
Well, I will say though,
uniquely talented.
When we hear some of the stats about Mike Vrabel and the number of starters on his defense that have been cut by other teams.
Yeah,
I love that. Yeah. I love these coaches that just know a fit for a job where you can, regardless of the name of the position, he's like, I need my guy in this defense who's good at going here, here, and here very fast. Where it's so, the specific responsibilities are so well known that they can translate that to their scout's eye and say, oh, the way he just turned left and backpedaled, I can use that.
It is early Belichick stuff, though. Again, it goes back to that 2000 Patriots team where they had signed like 21 free agents for the cost of like one that Washington signed that year, some crazy stat like that, right? And it was like, hey, I know my scheme. I'll just get guys that they can play a role. They can do their job, to quote him. And I don't need them to be a 5-star player or a 5-tool player. I need them to do that. And you go find players that can do that. And I think whether it's Vrabel or Cignetti, like they're both kind of from the branches of the same tree. And I think you see great coaching jobs that no one really saw coming.
All right, Matt. Always appreciate your time. Look forward to talking to you again next week. But enjoy this coming up weekend. Should be a lot of fun. NFL and then Monday night championship game.
Hopefully next week we are talking about a Bears-Niners NFC Championship.
We're going to be. It's going to be Niners at Soldier Field. I can't wait for it, pal.
I told Maddie, if it's Bears-Niners, Dan, I will.
You're coming in?
I'll come in.
All right. We got your dinners.
Tickets might be the bigger problem. Right?
No, I don't know if I can help.
I don't eat a whole lot. Beers and tickets are the problem.
Good to go.
So, yeah.
All right, man. Thanks, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Guys.
Okay, take care.
That is Matt Miller at NFL Draft Scout and ESPN. We were very red. We didn't plan this. I know your screen got super red.
A lot of red. Yeah, you got Dennison on today? Yeah. And Matty had his Nike hoodie on. He always has Nike gear.
Go Big Red.
Nike stuff. The Mike Tomlin thing, did that catch you? I was a bit surprised by it. I thought the points that Matt brought up about it were valid and very interesting because they really haven't done anything with quarterback over a long period of time. But for a guy to win 10 games every year in 19 seasons, it's insane.
I just can't believe that this will only be the fourth Steelers coach in my lifetime.
Isn't that? Oh, that's nuts. It really is. I mean, it really is just mind blowing.
I didn't Chuck Noll take over the year I was born? Was that 69?
69, yeah. Then you get Bill Cowher, then you get Mike Tomlin.
Yep. That's impossible to really consider in so many ways. But it's true. Where they're going to have to make a decision. They're going to have to decide: do they want to take a step back to take a step forward? And this is another one of these cases, like the Bears, of family ownership, trying to figure out how this is going to go, where they want to be, they've got their stadium.
Yep.
And I don't know that they have the same kind of. Do they have any other income outside of the Steelers? Because really, that's sort of the defining thing for a lot of these people.
I could look into it, but not off the top of my head. Can I recall that they've done anything else?
No, that the Rooney family has something else.
Yeah, I don't think so. I
don't know.
Know that off the top of our heads. And yeah, it's interesting that you bring up the coaching too, because I heard a few national commentators talk about, like, do you want to be the guy that follows Mike Tomlin? Like, do you want to be the guy that followed Chuck Noll? And then Bill Cowher won, and then you want to be the guy that follow Bill Cowher. I mean, he won. So it's like, I think it's pretty much. It's pretty much standard that you're following a good coach who's had success there.
I think the point being,
it's not like, hey, do you want to follow Mark Trestman? Fuck yeah, I do. You want to follow Matt Eberflus?
I'll follow him around right now. Shoot, I'll walk immediately behind Matt Eberflus until no matter what he's doing, I'll tell the person I'll do it better.
Yes.
Whatever it is.
No matter what it is, right.
Right? You're standing in line at Starbucks like, no, he did that wrong. I
can order better.
Write my name
show
on the
you.
cup.
Yeah.
Right? Well, then they bring Mitch Trubisky in to do the ordering because he's the backup orderer.
Backup order, it's great.
I wonder if we could do this before the draft this year. I don't know how long. It's Progressive that does those commercials.
Correct.
I don't know for how long if this is going to be like an era of commercials for them. But once we get the quarterbacks from the draft, we should do a Progressive backup commercial draft and see which of them from a given draft would be next to appear on one of those ads.
Yeah, we can do that.
It had to be the right slot because it would have to be somebody who's good enough to be recognizable enough to have had some success. There's a very specific fit for that role. It's usually somebody who's at least started some games, who's been around long enough, who can take the joke. That isn't some 24-year-old kid who's like, what do you mean I'm a backup? I'm fighting for my job here, man.
So, wait, who have been the quarterbacks they've used? Obviously, Mitch Trubisky.
Brissett, Huntley, Keenum, DeVito, Bridgewater.
And Trubisky was he was the highest draft pick, right, at number 2. Or was he 3? What did the Bears pick him at, 2 or 3?
I think
they moved up from 3 to 2, right?
Yeah, he was 2. Yeah, Bridgewater was a first-round pick. I mean, most quarterbacks are generally first-round picks, but that's. I think I've got that.
All right,
list
so we could find a guy.
Who?
Yeah, we can do that. We'll do that. I made a note of it just now.
Okay.
On my stuff, so I don't forget it. I looked up the Rams' 5 losses in this regular season.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to the Eagles, the 49ers, Carolina, Seattle, Atlanta, and just went through the numbers, try to find something that would stand out to me of consistency in these losses. The main thing is the fact that 4 of those 5 losses came on the road, which is important. I told you with Matt that they did average 28 points in those losses. So the Bears are going to have. It's not like they got blown out 31-3 or 24-10. They still scored points. They're scoring minimum 4 touchdowns in these losses, which is insane to think about. Bears are going to have to show up. The turnover battle is one thing. The Bears will have to take advantage. In those 5 losses, the Rams lost that turnover battle 9-4. And in one of those games, Seattle had 3 turnovers. So in those other 4 games, it was 9-1.
Wow.
So they have to take advantage of those opportunities, and they didn't in the Packers. They were there, and they did not. Kevin Byard didn't see the ball in the end zone.
Jervon Dexter.
The run, Dexter. I mean, that one, that run, catch and run by that big lineman, and then he kicks the ball 15 yards downfield as it pops out of his hands. You got to jump on those things. You have to take advantage of those. One thing that really stood out, though, was their third down conversion, Dan. The Rams were 25th in the league in third down percentage. 25th. So towards the bottom of the league. But what's interesting, and this is where the defense is going to have to come in and they're going to have to do something special. The Rams were 30th in the league in third downs.
Oh, and just having third downs?
Having third downs.
Yeah.
They were 30th. So they didn't get the third down often, but when they did, they weren't very good at converting them. One of the worst teams at converting third downs.
They probably didn't know what it was.
Right. They were like, what's that 3? What is that shape?
Yeah, I don't understand what are we doing here?
So, and I looked up what they did for completing and for converting to first down. They passed for first downs 65% of the times, which was the most in the league. So they're obviously not going to run. But every team passes more than they do run for first down on third down, except one team. There was a team this year, Dan, that ran for more first downs on third down than they threw for.
Was it a good team?
It was a good team. Well, it was a team that competed for division title. Yes.
Because my first thought was maybe the Eagles.
Nope.
Just because their offense was so weird. No, who was it?
It was Baltimore. Obviously,
okay.
with their running quarterback and with Derrick Henry. So
sure, that's reasonable.
So they had 287 conversions on third down. 141 times they threw. 146 times they ran. The only team in the NFL to do that.
Wow.
So, so the Rams don't see third down often, but when they do, they're not good. So if the Bears get them to a third down situation, they've got to take advantage. And they've got to close out that drive, and they've got to force them into punts. So they don't see it often, but when they do, there's a good chance that they can stop them on third down. Obviously, looking at all the numbers, just offensively as a team, Matthew Stafford's going to get his yards. That's going to happen. Puka Nacua is going to get his yards. He's going to get his targets. That's going to happen. You can still win football games with those guys getting their yards, and because they're going to. You're not going to shut down Puka Nacua, and you're particularly not going to do it with this defensive backfield.
Yeah, the problem is Tyler Higbee and Colby Parkinson.
But more importantly, in shutting them down, the Bears have to score throughout the game. Again, they score 28 points in those losses, Dan, on average. The Bears have to show up. You're going to have to.
The Bears
score
can just give you 25 in the fourth.
Oh, I know. And I was going to say you can't count on that, but shit, they're going to do it again. They'll score 4 touchdowns in the fourth.
Well, we could really use a 25-point fourth quarter here. Okay, all right, here we go. They've broken so many rules that sure you got to get off to a good start. You got to keep scoring and have a steady amount of scoring. And the Bears have taken all of these keys to the game and everything we do and made it all seem so silly.
Yeah, and I saw that obviously one of the bigger factors is being on the road, and the Rams have lost 4 of their 5 games. 4 of those 5 losses were on the road, which is important. And I saw some numbers on X yesterday, too, where when the temperature's colder, Matthew Stafford, as of late, hasn't been as good or as effective, so that's a positive thing. But again, force third downs, get them into third down situations. You can generally stop those drives because they're one of the least effective teams in converting third downs. And then you have to score points. You have to be there to score points and take advantage of turnovers.
I'm looking at the forecast right now, the latest for, especially if you're planning on going to the game. They're saying right now that the evening temperatures are going to be in the single digits, and that throughout the day, like you say, we could have real field temperatures at or below zero at around halftime. But all it says is bitterly cold, a little afternoon snow. We don't exactly know what that could possibly mean, but bundle up if you're going. I mean, really, like you
It's
said,
going to be cold.
Yeah, like that's in the sleeping bag and battery powered heaters, or I don't know what they let you bring in anymore, but the Vaseline on the face and the whole thing. So it's going to take some hardy souls to take this one in, and some drunken idiots who I'm sure are going to take this one in as well. While we're doing little fun stats, can I give you this one before we close today? Because it seems like a perfectly good place to do it. And I want to thank Johnny from Plainfield for letting us know. Since Sean McVay arrived in L.A., he has played in 14 playoff games.
Oh, I saw this. This is amazing.
This upcoming game is his 15th. This game against the Bears is his 15th different playoff opponent. He has never played the same team twice.
Yeah. Yeah, I texted you that yesterday. I saw that. I thought that was amazing.
How is that possible?
I have no idea. I thought that was incredible. 15 playoff games, 15 different opponents.
But you've been in a conference with like some teams generally being good. It's just that it's more than just regular randomness on that. That's extra randomness. That's wild.
Well, I think the NFL just scripts it that way, Dan. That's all.
It's got to be what it is.
That's got to be what it is.
That is today's Forward Progress, a Chicago Bears podcast. Don't miss it. For the rest of the week, we are busy. We are full of stuff. There's going to be all kinds of information and surprise guests, and you will be blissfully entertained and also well enough distracted as we're starting to get into the nervous time now. We're starting to get into like, oh, yeah, we're counting down the hours until 5:30 on Sunday. We'll be here for you. Bernstein and Abaticola on Forward Progress.
Forward progress has stopped. 10, 219.
Forward Progress, a Chicago Bears podcast with Dan Bernstein and Matt Abaticola on 312 Sports.